Side 5. Regular board meeting, September 25th, 2024. Roll call, please, Jean.
Director Cockrell.
Here.
Director Hannah.
Here.
Director McKinney.
Here.
Director Cheryl. Here. President Burke.
Here. Please join me to pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll open the public meeting. If any members of the public would like to comment, please do so at this time. Any member of the public would like to speak? Hearing none, I'll close the public comment period and move to the consent calendar. And note that Director McKinney is asked to be recused from the consent calendar. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar? I make a motion to approve the consent calendar. Seconded, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please, Jean.
Director Cockrell.
Yes.
Director Hannah.
Yes.
Director Cheryl. Yes. President Burke.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0, 1 recused.
Just to mention to board members, you notice that in your packet, there was actually the packet for the ordinance number 2024-02, but it was passed on the consent calendar. All right, so that packet is information on that item that was passed in the consent.
Yeah, I saw that when I was looking at it.
Okay. Moving on to continuing business, review and discuss and consider for approval fiscal year 24-25 final budget. Chief Collins.
Thank you. Let me just go back there, the page ahead of you. Before you is the final budget for the current fiscal year, which runs July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025. Just a few items to note on here. For last fiscal year, which ended on June 30th of this year, our operating and capital expenditures came in below what our final budget amount was. So we spent about 13.2 million, below our 18.1 anticipated. And our revenue came in above our final amount that we had budgeted last year by just almost $900,000. The budget that's in front of you, a couple of highlights from it. The first one is really looking at the fact that last year we were able to set aside about $3.5 million into fund reserves. 2 million of that went into LAIF for the Fire Station 44 replacement, and 1.5 we were able to fund into the California class account for the diversification. This year in our budget, we are not calling for any transfers into reserves. And that is in anticipation of starting to pay for the construction of Fire Station 44. If you look at your budget in section 7403, we're actually calling out about $5.8 million being directed towards Station 44. That does not include money coming from reserves. So we don't think in this fiscal year we'll have to pull from reserves in the construction process. We anticipate that being in the next fiscal year when we actually get into the construction phase. So majority of that money for Station 44 will be going into the temporary facility, as well as completing the design phase and the permitting process before we actually break ground. If we do break ground before that July 1 start of next fiscal year, we should have sufficient funds to get us across the line before we have the full line. Okay. Just to cover a couple other highlights from this year's budget. Not a lot of big changes. We did reduce the CalPERS contribution as a line item for an expenditure. And that's because if you remember last year, we made a lump sum payment to actually pay off the miscellaneous employee classification. We're not doing that this year, so we brought that amount down. Some other minor decreases across the board, specifically around tools and equipment and apparatus. We do have some additional purchases to make for equipment for this year, but it's not going to be anything significant compared to previous years. With that, just the final piece is our reserves. We anticipate $16.5 million in LAIF. 15 million of that is what the board has designated towards the Station 44 project, as well as our PARS Trust, our California class, and obviously petty cash. With that, happy to answer any questions specific to the budget.
Thank you. Board members?
Well done.
Looks good to me. Let me just make a couple, of things. First of all, by the way, a little bit out of sync here, but the information you put in the expenditures, the plus and minus, that's very helpful. Thank you. I think that's really a good addition to the thing. I just make a couple of observations to you. One is it's, at least in my opinion, it's a very solid financial position to be going into 24 and 25. We obviously have a balance in 25, the 25 balance. We anticipate a small increase in the property tax revenue, less than 2%, 1.5%. And we're projecting a 2 million fund balance, which I think is very conservative, but hopefully whatever it is will be fine. The other comments I would throw on the table for just for consideration is that there are some unknowns that we're fixing this year that were not on the tables in prior years. One is the issue of ERAF, which has been bouncing around as to who's going to get that and whether we're going to be able to keep have it, if you will. Chief Cox is well aware of what's going on with the ALS JPA funding for the communication center and how that whole thing, and I'd like to ask you in your chief report, chief, if you touch upon that and bring us up to date with that. But we certainly don't know the 44 costs and what that is, and really that kind of hangs over everything as to what we're going to do, what to do it. And also the information that's been provided to us expected is that we've had increases in the Cal Fire contract. So with all of those, if you will, they affect obviously what we're doing here. There's some also, I would submit there's some positive things to look at. And that is we've finally finalized the Station 41 lease. That's a done deal, I hope. Okay, it's done. We have invested, as the chief mentioned, with Cal Class 1.5, and when I was at the California Special Districts meeting, I had met with the Cal Class individuals. They're very positive. They continue to get a lot of new organizations joining Cal Class. Their return on investments currently, or it was a week ago, was 5.6%. Which is very positive in that area. We also have, as the chief mentioned, reserves of 2 million in San Antonio County, 6 million in Lake, and 4 million in PAS. We also sometimes forget that we continue to have a lease for AMI here at the station, which generates, I think, $40,000 a year and so forth. So even though the consideration for 44 is a major thing, there's certainly some positive things that going on. If you look at the page 10 that I mentioned earlier of all thing, there was some $2.7 million in reduction in expenses that the chief had put into this budget. And as he also mentioned earlier, the total was some 4.3 for Station 44 that went in there. One other thing that just that I would notice to make sure that I get this right here. Let's see what this is. Oh, on page 9. It looks like that we're going to have free legal services, is that correct?
It's such a pleasure coming here.
And I noticed it's just a blank spot there. I thought perhaps we were gonna have a generous. Is that correct?
That's correct. I believe we rolled it up into professional services.
Okay. So that was my, any comments that I had on the budget. Anything else? Any of the? No. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the 24-25 budget?
So moved.
So seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Jean.
Director Cockrell.
Yes.
Director Hannah.
Yes.
Director McKinney.
Yes.
Director Shara. Yes. President Burke.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Moving on to item number 7, new business, and I would like to make a note that Director McKinney is asked to be recused from voting on these 3 items. And can we do them at all at one time?
Yes, you
I'd like a motion to approve resolution 2024-53, 2024-54, and 2024-55. You have a motion?
so moved.
And frankly, this is automatic. We have to do this. I mean, there is no debate on it that I'm aware of at any rate. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, moved and second. I just have one question. What is the third item? I assume one is for safety, one is for miscellaneous, and what's the third item? Is it? I thought perhaps it might be temporary people that were with 2,400 at one time or something.
Yeah. Sorry.
It just says non-representative or miscellaneous members.
Yeah, I don't believe we have any in that category. I
Yeah.
think this is a blanket that we get from CalPERS.
It's moot anyway, but anyway, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Any discussion? Roll call, please, Jean.
Director Cockrell?
Yes.
Director Hannah?
Yes.
Director Cheryl? Yes. President Burke?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0, 1 abstention.
Moving on. Review and discuss coastside fire protection designation, vision and values. So forth. Let me preface this comment here with the time I spent, and I know that Patrick may have some comments too regarding the time we spent at the California Special District Association, and that's what kind of prompted me to put this on the ballot, on the agenda. And I'll explain why. But first of all, let me just make a couple of comments on the conference itself, which is a board member were asked to do to give you an update. I personally had an opportunity to attend a couple of the required courses for being on the board, sexual harassment and that type of thing, and did that. Overall, I found the conference, and Patrick can comment on this, perhaps not as informative as some of the ones that I had attended in the past. A couple of them were a couple of breakdown areas were a little bit surprising. There was a breakdown session on DEI, which is probably is somewhat controversial and going through a rather dramatic change. And yet the presenter at that particular one was somewhat promoting it, which I found to be kind of interesting given the time that's going on now and what's going on nationally. In fact, a lot of people left that particular meeting before got too far into it, which was kind of a little bit. I also noticed that the organization is becoming more and more involved in instituting national small business and organizations. They have different things going on a national level. I had an opportunity to meet with PAS representative, with CalClass, with CalPERS and others, and who were informative and have supposedly going to send me some information that I hope will be valuable. And one thing that somewhat is unrelated to our business, but let me mention anyway, because I was impressed. One of the speakers was a Dr. Elizabeth, I think it was Lombardo, was her name. And she gave a very interesting talk, and one of the things that she spoke to was on the subject of mattering, MATTERING. Does that ring a bell to anybody? It certainly did not to me. It turned out that the gentleman that was sitting, that was sitting next to me was very well informed in it, and it was really fascinating. And I won't try to go into it. I urge it's to make it simple is mattering is to be, as a person, to be important, if you will, or to affect what happens. And it's in psychology, it's the thing that's going on right now. And as you read or listen to this, it has some particular air on young teenage children and elderly people. It has or could have significant consequences and happenings of it. And I just found it very interesting. I think the audience really related to it and really understood it was something new that people didn't have. With that, that's all. If you have anything on that you'd like to speak to on the conference, you do.
I can add to it now and.
Go right ahead.
Later. that's
Well, it
fine.
doesn't really matter. I mean, sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I don't disagree that there have been previous, meetings that I've gone to and attended that I've gotten more from. I didn't have any specific coursework that needed to be ticked off. A lot of what goes on at these events is, it's a pretty large portion of it's kind of a sales pitch of everything from banking to, of course, things that we do use like bars and calipers, et cetera. Some of the questions that I believe I would have for those organizations like bars or calipers, the individuals that are there are more on the sales side, so we really can't get into some of those details. Overall, it's a good experience. It's a good network of people. Generally, when I'm there or we are there, we're one of the only fire districts, a lot of water, sewer, and everything else. But it's interesting to hear different people's perspectives. So there's been to two of these and a couple of coursework things, and you always see people again. Learn something from them. Our situation is a bit more unique, and I think again, most of the people, not just being fire, but also being that how we run our district with everything being handled by the contractor, CAL FIRE. We don't have a lot of the things that you can gain from. Most special districts have staff, managers, and employees working directly for them. So a lot of the coursework that they offer would be very beneficial for those districts, more so than us. So, I just try to, get a little something out of it. It was extremely hot down there as it was, so it's challenging. Of walking, I thought I'd walk the 1/4 mile to the grocery store. I did, but I took an Uber back.
Wow.
I mean, we live here on the coast. It was 112.
Smart man.
112, and not that I haven't lived in that before, but then it was San Gabriel Mountains are on fire and they had some stuff that was blowing over that day.
Yeah. Yep. The day I left and I stayed with my daughter all the way down, but it was 56 degrees and Indian Wells was 104.
Yeah.
It's
And
What a difference.
and I know you drove, so you got to acclimate a little
Yeah.
bit, but I flew down Sunday evening and left here, I'm sure it was 56, got there at 6:30 PM and the plane door opened. Just
Oh,
whack.
So
Yeah,
you
a little bit of
got
humidity,
mom
it was a little
springs or
thunderstorm,
what?
home spring.
The other thing I've noticed is that the California Special Districts Association, it appears to me becoming correctly so, more involved in California legislation. They have more representatives interfacing with the legislature and taking more positions, putting out more information and that type of thing. Whether that's good or bad or not, we'll see, but I think they protect our interests, which is certainly positive. That's it. Let me get back to the very simple reason I asked to put this item on the agenda. It's no big deal, but in the past, you go to a conference, and in my case, I find that I get more information out of just sitting and chatting with other peers that are there that mention things that you're not familiar with, but maybe you had not thought of. In this particular case, on one of the days, I happened to sit down at a table with 5 other individuals that they were speaking about the whole area of strategic plans. And I listened and tried to make a couple of comments, and overall, I was rather surprised at and they were board members, and one general manager, and the others were 4 board members. I was rather surprised at the lack of knowledge and action that the board members, and first of all, they're great people. I'm not, downing them at all, great people, but really didn't seem to have any concept of what their role was and what authority and responsibility they had versus the general manager of the operation. And again, there were comments like, well, do you have a strategic plan? At least 2 of them, who I don't know who they were, they said they had no strategic plan at all to begin with there. And another lady said, well, we don't do it. We're a board member. The general manager does it. We don't do that stuff.
Oh, really, that's interesting to do that. And some other questions were having to do with similar operations plan. Well, how do you do that? Why is that okay with the California law to do that thing? It was really kind of disturbing to see kind of the lack of um, board engagement and really taking charge to go forward with that. And that's difference. The thing that was obvious that to me was that the difference between board members and policy and the operations that, you know, the CAL FIRE does, I think is pretty clear to us as board members, was not at all clear to this group of 5 people sitting there. And again, I'm not dunning them. They were just chatting, and it's kind of struck me in a strange area. And which led me to put this thing on the agenda. And I'd just like to, again, I think it's if you look at this, we from time to time have looked at action plans that are in the strategic plan and the things that we need to do. And certainly we need to update that again, and I'm not proposing that today. But things like the mission, the vision, and the values that are in there, I don't recall that we've discussed that here at this board for some time. It's been a while. At one time, putting these together was a very hot item on this board. I mean, big time hot item. And now it's just, we just kind of accept it. But we have the opportunity to change this if we'd like, or add to it, or delete it, or whatever it is. It's nothing that, you know, we're obliged to do. It's something that perhaps we should have. And I would just suggest that we will have the whole subject on our agenda for action in the future. And I would hope that we would consider the mission, vision, and values of the COSI, along with the action plans that we might like to add or change this as a suggestion. The other comment I would like to make that we're very fortunate in that the chief has prepared we had first of all a contract with CAL FIRE, which is very detailed and which really gives us a foundation. And we really have the operation plans that I don't think the other, certainly the five organizations that I've been referring to, the people had nothing like this. And if you look at this, and you don't have it, it's a public document. I just didn't copy all this. But on page 10 of this document, page 8, the chief has enumerated a number of responsibilities and authorities that we have versus what CAL FIRE does in this thing. Let me just mention that the board will continue to serve in the capacity they did prior to the contract with CAL FIRE. District will retain the local identity, use of names, signage, IES, website, and so forth. The district will retain ownership of all facilities, apparatus, supplies, and equipment. The district will establish and approve of the type, range, and level of service. We do that. Provided within the district. District will determine the level of funding for emergency and community service. The district will approve Schedule A, which we do, funding, if you will, and Schedule C, budgets. And it goes on, continue to be the approving jurisdiction, approving body for so many things. And it also lists CAL FIRE's responsibility as well. And I think we know that, but I think to review it and what triggered me was to listening to the people that were chatting there. And so I thought it would be healthy to do it. One thing that I have asked Chief Cox prior to this meeting is that we have, the chief has, under our purchasing authority, we've given him responsibility to enter into a contract and spend money for various things up to certain limits. And recently, I think there were 2 contracts that were just signed for, one was IT and one was for something else.
The
For what?
auditing service.
Oh, an audit, yeah, to be changed and so forth. And I've asked, and normally he has a complete responsibility, as he should, to do that type of thing. I have asked the chief, if you will, that on our agendas in the future, that he would list those contracts and plans that he has the authority to do, but simply list in a 1-line item on our agenda that we have entered into a new auditing contract, we have entered into a new IT contract. So that in case the board has some question, we can say, what is this? What goes on? I think it helps the transparency between us
in the district to have that type of thing and asked that he would do that, and certainly he agreed to do that. I'll stop, and one last thing that I think that it was illustrative to me is at one time, 100 years ago, I had an occasion to be around and getting board members and going to a lot of board meetings in the .com era and all that type of thing. Some of you may remember, man, companies went and came, went fast, some survived and some went on and so forth. And I had occasion to sit on an awful lot of board meetings. And there was a couple of phrases that between the new board members that were just put together and they were discussing things. And whenever I heard somebody say, I didn't know that, I said, this is trouble. And, they would do, the board was doing something that either the president didn't know or vice versa. And almost invariably that signaled, uh-oh, there's a problem in this company. And I just think that knowing what we're capable of doing versus what a great job that Cal Fire is doing is helpful to both of us. And I think compared to any organization I've been exposed to, I think we're in great shape, and I'm very appreciative of the work that Cal Fire and Gene and everybody else has done for us. But I want to get that off my chest. I'm done. Okay. Any questions there?
I just had a comment in regards, I think it's a good idea from a transparency perspective to be informed, if at all possible. Not sure it always would be, but maybe it could be prior to the, because if we had questions about a contract that's already been signed, it's a little after the fact. I don't know if that's always possible because we're 1 month apart. Making sense?
Okay. Are we getting comments?
Yeah, so I think it's
Like a heads up to, let's say here we are, September 25th. Next month, I'm looking into a contract. It's pretty much ironed out. This is what it's for.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
100%. I can probably the process wise, just send out a blast to the board before we sign it, just saying, hey, this contract is, we plan on engaging on this contract.
Okay.
That's fine.
Anything else?
One of the things I wanted to comment on, you brought these other districts and how they have issues they have to deal with every time. I almost feel like we're cheating. We're very lucky we have a professional organization that handles all this stuff and quite frankly, does it pretty damn well. Because I recall back prior to having these people do all the work for us. And a lot of stuff was dropped onto the board. The board is having to do a lot of this work and other stuff. And you have a bunch of people who aren't necessarily professionals in the field trying to run it. There's something that they're not really qualified to do. It shows up. Whereas by having Cal Fire doing this, so they've been doing this for years, so they're not reinventing anything. They've done this. They know what they're doing. It's professional as hell. And, so I feel pretty, like I said, almost like we're cheating. And then I hear these stories about all these other districts or going through all this stuff. And he made some comments and I recall what it was like back here. Going back to 2007, 2008, 9, right in there, some of the things that was being thrown on the board. I'm going, oh my God, they're comparing it today. And we used to have to move the meetings over to the apparatus floor because there was so much dissension and friction and problems and people not understanding and then here we are today. Maybe it's a sign of the times, but we have the co-side buzz is here at our meeting, and I don't see a crowd of people carrying pitchforks and torches and torches and stuff. And that was just kind of my comment. We're lucky in that respect.
Well, one last thing, just in regards to the agenda item, which is reviewing that document, our policy document.
What's that?
I was just saying one last thing regarding the agenda item, we're talking about the policy document with the vision and the values and mission.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you like us to come back maybe next month with some thoughts on that then? I mean, what's
Sure,
the goal? Bring it up now and then circle back.
I'd ask the chief to put that on the agenda of the street and the whole thing will go over, including the vision, the values and all that. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Moving on,
Board of Directors and Chiefs report, Finance Committee, there was no Finance Committee meeting, but the spreadsheet for the first 2 months of the fiscal year is in a packet, public document. There is nothing, as far as I'm concerned, that's out of place or unusual, very standard. Any questions? No. Moving on, Volunteer Committee report, Director Cockrell, Director Hannah.
I can just
Well, I
say,
attended,
I mean, we touched on a couple of our paramedics that I guess.
Yes.
Initially hired and they're starting, but fantastic, the first 2 paramedics to go through the program. That is phenomenal.
Outstanding.
Yeah, so
We're thrilled.
I know it took a while to get through the hiring process and there was some concern there for some time. I think it took almost a year, maybe that's normal. So awesome to everyone, congratulations. Also to Chief Armstrong, who kind of brought that to our table in the first place.
And we have one more candidate in the pipeline, right?
She's in school right now.
Fantastic. She's about 70%. It's about a 1.5 program.
Yep.
So we have a long wait, but what a great outcome. Also, you have some other good news for the volunteers.
You have other things I'm not sure you're referring to, please share.
You won the 100 Coastside Women Who Care, which is a tremendous organization. So that there's a grant that they are going to give. The same one that Coastside Certain won is now coming to the volunteers. So I'm not sure of the exact number, but ours was around $8,000. And I'm just so proud of the volunteers for going and so grateful to the organization for choosing them. That's great news.
Let me understand, is there a grant coming to the coastside volunteers?
No, she's speaking, I believe, of the Half Moon Bay Volunteer 501c3 organization.
That's
That's
a 501c3,
yeah, it's a
not
separate
us.
item from this, yeah,
Okay,
or separate entity, I guess.
It has to be a nonprofit to qualify.
this is the $10,000 you're speaking.
I just want to make it clear.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's my notes from the volunteers. They were nominated for a $10,000 grant.
Okay,
For the volunteer, yeah, and so 100 plus women who care, yeah.
Maybe it's gone up since we had our opportunity.
So moving back to the Coastside Volunteers, a couple other things, the academy is still being set up for November.
Yep.
November start. The radios that were purchased for paid staff arrived, and that means eventually within the next few weeks, I'm sure the surplus or the previous set of radios that will be trickled through to the volunteers will start happening between Captain Mingstein and Ken Lord. They'll get that all sorted out, I'm sure, over the next few weeks. That's very, very good, because I'll say as a volunteer myself, communications, probably aside from your actual equipment that you need on site, communication is the next thing that you need. You can't, being a volunteer, if you're coming from a different location, not from a station, it's difficult to always have that radio communication. Pagers are good to get you the notification, but you can't, they're not two-way, so that's fantastic. I'm happy to hear it. Other than that, things are smooth. They're still doing driver operator, or there's, some more people that can drive, which is also a big thing. Good stuff.
One of the things in discussing the volunteer academy, it won't be just for the Half Moon Bay for the Coastside volunteers. La Honda, Kings Mountain, Willamar, etc. There's some discussion. I don't know if it's formal yet, but possibly Colma getting some training here. Is anyone?
I know there's been discussion, but I don't know where it's at.
Yeah.
I haven't heard from Ken on that.
So apparently our academies here are gaining some good PR somewhere. If you have people that we don't normally interface with, considering coming participate.
Well, I know that normally we engage with La Honda and
Well, that part is correct. I was talking about.
Coleman.
how many volunteers does coastside district have?
In this upcoming or current,
Yeah,
upcoming academy or currently?
yeah,
Currently,
2024.
Yeah, less than 25.
It's less than 25. I think it might be
Fluctuates around
23.
that 2021 mark.
okay. Anything else?
it's a thing.
Okay, moving on, land instructions, Director McCary, Director Cheryl.
Chief Civil?
Kind of the same as last month. We're getting ready to start our bi-weekly meetings again because things are starting to move in the right direction. So next week, I think we should be scheduling a meeting, basically go over the constructability review and just see where things are with the county. They're still waiting to hear back from PG&E and we do have the temporary land lease occupied. So we will be paying rent on that, starting this month and continuous until we're done building the new station. So we get to see that bill coming across and we're just moving forward and hopefully we'll get the temp station moving faster. So we get the guys moved into somewhere so we can get ready to tear that thing down, hopefully in the near future. But it's still kind of, waiting to hear back from the county and PG&E and other people. So we haven't really started a good direction moving forward yet. It's kind of still on a slow roll.
Very good. When you're putting these temporary structures, the temporary structures, I think the houses are in the company. How could you just like put in, I mean, for want of a better word, put in motorhomes?
Basically, it's
And get
It's a-
around some of the permitting requirements?
basically a modular, trailer.
Right.
And, yeah, they required a lot of stuff to have that, but
Yeah.
because it is gonna be about 3 years, we did the basic construction type modulars that. They're required because it is a fire station, it's required to have sprinklers and ADA requirements and. All the other stuff is required for the county and earthquake straps and this and that, and I debated with the county because it is on wheels, I'm like, it's not gonna fall over, but. It still was required to have earthquake straps and everything, and hurricane straps and everything else, but yeah, it'll be up to code and. It'll be turnkey when it rolls in there, so it'll be easy for them to move straight into.
My concern is it looks like there could be just as many delays for the temporary structure as we're gonna have for the permanent structure.
Yeah,
And that being the case, that's a problem.
it was definitely a surprise for me, but it's all moving in the right direction now and that. As soon as the county approves that, so now they're just doing the limit survey portion of it to see for water runoff and. A few other items the county was requesting and they'll be able to basically, we'll be able to rent that and get it moved right into place.
Thank you.
What is the estimated time of going out for contact?
Okay. See it. Says here, March 14th, 2025. Is the estimated, the advertising bid for the
For
construction,
March of 25?
yeah.
Okay.
The March 14th is what they have listed, and we're pretty much on track again, so I would say that. It seems like PDK has been pretty on point for staying on track, so that looks like a good day, which is really gonna be here fast. March is gonna be here a lot faster than we realize.
Moving on, Vegetation Management Committee, Director Cockrell, Director Hannah.
I don't have anything.
No report. Moving on, Special District Association, San Mateo Chapter, Director Hannah.
What I was gonna say was roughly touching on the event that we went to together.
Okay,
With that, nothing else to that.
nothing else.
Nothing else.
Okay. JPA, there's a lot going on and I'm gonna wait for the chief report perhaps to summarize some things that are going on in that area. Emergency Preparedness Liaison Report, it's Chief.
Chief Cosgrave is not here, but he did provide an update. They hired a new coordinator for the coast, County DEM, County Line to Pacifica, which is county fire area through coast side. And they'll be starting on Monday. All the coast tsunami sirens have received their preventive maintenance and new batteries. The technician is finishing up on some testing, but they are all in good condition. Ongoing planning and training and exercises at DEM. And several projects, including the CRISP, which is the Coastside Resilience Infrastructure Strategic Plan. With Supervisor Mueller's office. And Chief Cosgrave is in a training this afternoon, so can't be here in person.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Actually, you kind of maybe land structures is when I should have mentioned this, but it just popped in my head. If we heard anything new in regards to Station 41's landscaping / sidewalk /
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. We did receive word from Sean Rose that, one of the grants was awarded, I believe it was the Safe School Grants Award. And there was, good momentum on the other grant, which was the county ADA grant. So, I think we're on track for that November report from him, regarding the grants.
Terrific. Terrific, great. Good news.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Server report, here to Cheryl.
So it's been busy. We had a class here in this room for 2 days. It was an 4-hour class and two-hour sessions in Listos, which is emergency preparedness, not the full CERT Basic Training Academy, but a 4-hour session on personal preparedness and family preparedness and initial response in Chinese. The entire class was in Chinese. We created all the manuals in Chinese. The name tags were in Chinese. The slides were in Chinese. It was an effort to be in compliance with what the city has asked all service organizations with the response capability in the area to do since the mass shooting. It took us a year to put this together. It was multi-agency for CFPD, Senior Co-Siders, Central County Fire, Listos, DEM, City of Half Moon Bay, and Co-Side CERT put this thing together. It was the first of its kind. All 27 students that started graduated. It included individuals who were directly affected by the shooting, who were in the shooting, as well as other people who are part of the Chinese community here. We thought perhaps everyone might be living in the senior campus area of Bloom Lane. Turned out not to be correct. Our students came from many different neighborhoods on the coast side. It was a remarkable event. They were tremendously enthusiastic participants in the class. They were right there, the things that people hesitate in class to do, or to touch the mannequin and go through the first aid training and get out there with the live fire extinguishing, and you just couldn't hold them back. They were like on it and getting it done and learning, very enthusiastic. The comments afterwards, thank you for the respect for giving us this education in our language. Thank you for including us in the society of the city of Half Moon Bay. Since the shooting, we felt a little isolated, and we appreciate that we're being brought in, and we've never had public safety instruction prior to this in Chinese. So we are very, very grateful, and Co-Side CERT is very grateful for the alliance that pulled this off. So thank you so much to everyone who got that done. And anybody who thinks that Chief Griffin doesn't still have his firefighting skills as a good citizen, right before his big event, he offered to help. And I had a 65-pound mannequin that needed to be lifted up over his head into the top shelf of storage, and he just went, phew, and that mannequin was put away. So there it is. Never lost anything.
Chinese.
It's a technical term. Shishing, right, exactly. Okay, then right after that, like the next day, Half Moon Bay High School had its service learning day, real life learning, they call it. We had 45 signups. Now, we know from experience that 45 people will not come to fall CERT from the high school, but it was a tremendous reception. And what had happened is the 6 students that graduated got the word out, and people came over and signed up with us. So they can't all come to fall CERT, but fall CERT, spring CERT, years coming. We're thrilled to have the Half Moon Bay High School students with us. They're outstanding students. Then this weekend, the Great Coast Side Shakeout took place. That's the unique 5-year-old earthquake drill, which is a webinar actually, happens on the Thursday night before. And then the Shakeout has neighborhoods putting up their neighborhood command post, standing them up in 11 neighborhoods across the coast side, plus other neighborhoods who are just getting into it, just learning how to do it, joined in with the ones that were more organized. So we had 20 neighborhoods represented, and they went through that drill and did a great job. And here, this was the DOC and Aries, our hand in glove emergency radio group, did a really good job of coordinating the reports that were escalated to the DOC and Chief Lord sat right here and administered every one of them. So some of them had equipment sent, some of them we were too busy, some, different things happened. There were injects, there were disaster damage assessment reports in light, medium, and heavy type of damage. And Chief Lord was magnificent in the way that he just adjudicated all of that, as though it were a real emergency. So thank you again for that. It was a great exercise. Again, unique to the coast side. Our standard operating procedure documents. No, it's really fascinating. We've been only working on this for how many years? But Chief Cox has done a great job of holding our reluctant feet to the fire. And tomorrow you should see a almost final draft. Once we're final, the group that's meeting tomorrow, we have a couple of questions. Once we get those answered and you have a chance to weigh in on whatever you think we should be doing in addition to this, we'll send it to our leadership team and have it back to you shortly. Tomorrow night, I've been invited by the sheriff's office to speak at their town hall about CERT. So I've been cloaking myself in Switzerland because recently that's become kind of a hot topic around the county. And I am hoping to not involve CERT in any of that controversy. I'm simply going to present. We're honored that we were asked to speak. I'm simply going to present the program and then step back because we have very important relationships on both sides of this concern, and we want to come out the other. We come in peace, and we want everything to be peaceful on behalf of the coast side. So, and finally, now what happens is coast side CERT kind of calms down for the month of October because it's Pumpkin Festival, and our membership wants to participate and support their various organizations that participate in everything pumpkin. And so we stop being CERTs go back to being participants in their neighborhoods, and they support their schools and their faith-based organizations and every other thing that serves the Pumpkin Festival. So, which goes on not for 2 days, but for weeks, as you all know. So that's what's happening. We calm down in October, but we show back up for fall CERT in November. And then we just finished organizing. We have requests from members who want in 2019. I know it's a long report, sorry. In 2019, Frank Ferroni from PG&E came and gave an excellent presentation on how not to get electrocuted when wires come down in your neighborhood.
That'd be good to know.
It's good to know. And he's very good at it, and it's an excellent presentation. So we're bringing him back. December 14th, we've reserved the coastal rep right next door here at the theater, 158 seats. It's an Educate the Coast Side, so we're gonna have everyone, we're gonna invite everyone who wants to learn about this. The first time we did it in 2019, it was over at Cunha at the school. We had 71 people, so now we have a larger capacity, and it's just something we're doing to benefit the community before potentially the rains with the tree falls and the down power lines start again after the first of the year. Thank you, board.
Very good, Cynthia. Questions, comments?
Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Moving on, attorney's report,
Nothing, thank you.
no report. Fire chief's report,
All right, just a couple.
go ahead.
A couple things. As President Burke said, we will be meeting as staff members from all the agencies within the ALS JPA in October. That's a meeting for this district case, the fire chief to attend to gain further information regarding the ALS JPA. One piece of information, just to add context to our conversation last month, the current agreement between the ALS JPA and PSC is still working off of the 2010 signed agreement. So the agreement between the ALS JPA and PSC was signed in 2010 for 3 years with an option for a 6-year extension, which takes it to 2019. Since then, it's operated on just a COLA increase at that original 2010 contracted amount. So that's just an important piece of context as this conversation evolves, in the sense that we're still operating off the 2010 agreement. We'll bring back whatever information we get regarding it to the board, and I'm sure there'll be further discussions at the management level and the board level of the SGPA, which obviously we have representation on. As far as contracts and agreements in that conversation, we have a meeting coming up in October with Montero Water and Sewer District regarding the hydrant agreement that is still in draft form. Hope to have something back in the near future regarding a compromise we can both make. As was discussed earlier, we've executed an agreement with Fisher and Fisher and their professional consultants on CalPERS, essentially. And they can actually dig deep into actuarials, long-term planning, number of people, and options for the district moving forward. They will present a final report at one of the board meetings, so there may be some meetings before that, one-on-one or conversations, but they will come before the entire board with their findings and information on the obligation that the district still has with CalPERS. The agreement for fire station, the temporary fire station 44, which was approved by the board last year, we finally executed. That is for renting the land behind the sheriff's substation in Moss Beach. We now have that agreement in place, and we've started the process because once we get that final approval from the county, we're going to have to move pretty quick to get the facility built out. The other agreement that was executed was with the auditing services. We put out an RFP for auditing services. We had one response. It's a firm, Nigro and Nigro. That agreement will supersede the Harshwell auditing contract we had, as Harshwell is now providing our accounting and file balance services that the county previously provided. So this trickle-on effect for the place. We did start using Harshwell for our accounting. We've been working with them in the county as far as getting our monthly trial balances. And we obviously are now engaged with Stepford for our IT and MDM device management services. We have some onboarding things coming on. Once we get information about your points of contact for IT needs and help, after this year goes forward, make sure you get that so that when you have an issue with your iPad or computer, you can call.
Excuse me, Chief, what you just said, that if the board members that require service from the IT firm, we can get it.
Yes, yes, and we'll provide that contact information. Part of what we pay for is 24/7 support, so.
I will never need it, Chief. You never know, okay.
As far as staff and personnel are concerned, Chief Silva led the interview process for the 3rd Battalion Chief position, Battalion 10 Charlie. That occurred last week. They have started the background process on the top candidate. We should have an announcement for that appointment here in the near future by next month for sure. Still tentatively planning the fall fire academy for the volunteers. And on the labor side, should the tentative agreement with the labor union between the state and CAL FIRE Local 281 be ratified by the membership, the 66-hour work week implementation will begin on November 25th in the district in County Fire.
This year.
This year. What that means on the ground is, instead of right now, we have 2 shifts at each station with a 3rd floating shift. Starting November 25th, there'll be 3 shifts dedicated to each station. So there'll be A, B, and C shift. You won't notice a difference as an end user, but just know in the background that 66. For training, the Chief Lord's working on his 2025 plans for using the classroom and scheduling classes. We talked about the new 44 in the temporary station. The installation project here is complete, and the South Lot project at Station 41, the permits have been submitted to the county for permitting. That is not a final decision by the board as to which option they're going to choose. It's just getting the permits signed so that if we do make a decision, it's going forward. And finally, on apparatus, we still have 2 apparatus in production, engine 340 and engine 44. The old engine 140 is going to auction. Chief Inkstein will be dropping that out for auction. The new utility 41 is in service, and we will on Monday be releasing an invitation for bids to auction off the old utility 41, and hope to be able to sell that at a decent price. Apart from that, happy to answer any questions.
So it was engine 340,
Engine 44.
engine 44, okay.
How were you able to fight fires constantly throughout the entire summer and complete our budget to such an excellent degree?
I have the easy job. Everyone who works here has the hard job.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the work that you've been doing with your team that's been on the finance.
Yeah, thank you.
Amen. Chief, perhaps expand upon a little bit the relationship, if you will, with the JPA and the county. For example, correct me if I'm wrong, because I get confused myself on this, but the county has a contract with, in fact, they own the dispatch center.
Yeah.
They have a contract with the JPA that's expired, if you will, so the county is, and the ambulance service is actually providing money to the JPA members. We get a fee, whatever that fee is, I forget now. But what is it the county wants to do? Take all, what is your expectation the county would like to do? Take all the fees from the JPA members to finance the dispatch center? What is the purpose of all this?
Yeah, so I think the way it's been explained is the PSC is obviously a county center, county employees. They have a fire desk with 3 dispatchers, a law desk for the sheriffs and the agencies that contract on the law enforcement side, and an EMS desk. The ALS JPA has a contract for those fire dispatchers. Those 3 fire dispatchers dispatch all fire calls in the county under contract with the JPA. What has happened is the county has studied what it actually costs to dispatch fire, and it's a lot higher than what the original agreement amount was between the PSC and the JPA. So what the county's done is come back to say, look, it's costing us a lot more to provide this service, a lot more than what previously had been charged in the past. And there was conversations between the JPA and county about what the actual cost was. There were some large numbers that it actually cost the county to dispatch. The interesting piece is the AMR itself, as a part of that ALS contract, is required to be dispatched by PSC. There's nothing in the contract that requires fire to be. It just makes the most sense to be in the same center with the ambulance and the law enforcement. So I think it really is a matter of a contract that's expired quite a long time ago. You know, a lot has changed in 14 years. And now it's just a negotiation between the expectations of the prices have gone up, the contracts out of term, and how we get resolution.
You know, I think I'm being redundant what I said a month ago, but you know, I certainly understand that there be cost increases and to do it. However, the county getting the individual cities involved, if you will, in a discussion may be helpful, if you will, but it seems to be pushing the JPA aside. And I'm not sure whether my opinion is correct, and if it is, whether that's the correct approach to get this resolved. The whole organization with the JPA and PC.
Yes.
This seems to be awkward as heck. It really does, but to say the least. But we're gonna go through it. We're gonna have some meetings, if you will, and I think we're ultimately going to be into it, and then we're going to be having, probably through the JPA, asked to support some kind of a new contract, and whatever it is. Bruce, you probably remember you were involved with the JPA years ago. And
Yes.
It was a dogfight.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah. There may be another one.
cool.
Well, as I understand it, it is working well, though. I mean, in terms of an operational standpoint.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, that's the rubs that's,
the
we're looking at behind the curtain, it's all a big mess, but then out here, it seems to be just fine.
Yeah, it's hard to quantify the benefit of being in the same center. I think that's the thing.
Okay,
We don't,
being the same one?
the same dispatch center.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
just the operational functionality of everyone being together is pretty seamless.
Very good.
I would just add, I mean, I think it's from my perspective and maybe others here on this board, that it's just frustrating to not really understand exactly what's going on, when it's obviously at some point here, we're gonna be asked to pay our share. What makes sense, as does every district, fire department, and law enforcement agency, and EMS agency in the county would do. So just, I think at different times we've talked about, is there someone that can, you guys are bringing us as much information as you can get, but it sounds like it's hard to get more information from both JPA and the county, and to really understand. You know, and obviously it works from a standpoint of day-to-day functionality. It's fantastic, and I totally agree with you, chief, having everything in one spot versus separate dispatches, and that just takes time away from the patient or the person that needs help. But understanding it well would be critical, because at some point we're gonna be proving something to pay for our share.
Well, our share, that's the
And, well,
question.
and the form that we had looked at, I have in front of me now from previous meetings, where the numbers would like dramatically jump without any real explanation, or, you know, it looked a little haphazard, and it sounds like this entire discussion with them sounds a little bit haphazard, and they haven't had a contract, say, since 2016, whatever. It's like month to month, or whatever you want to call it, it's gone forward.
Yeah, and I think the reason it's come to this. Cause I normally, or we normally would never have an involvement with the contract between PSC and the ALSJPA. That's really a decision between the ALSJPA board and PSC to make that connection. The reason it came before the board here is because we received that letter, Chief Armstrong received that letter directly from the county that really called out the district, which then puts us in this position of having to go back and talk to the LSJPA and really understand what the plan is moving forward.
Where is the dispatch center physically located?
It's in Redwood City.
Would there be any benefit in, for example, me going down there and identifying myself and just kind of looking around and watching for a while, saying, what the hell are you guys doing?
Well, I would say if anyone on the board is interested in a tour, I can definitely facilitate that. And it would be something that if you're interested in seeing what the actual operation is, we can facilitate and get you in there to see it. I don't think it's maybe the forum to talk to them about the actual service, because obviously that happens.
Oh, of course not. No, I understand that. You know, I've seen dispatch centers before, but that's quite a few years ago. And when the technology has changed considerably since then. And speaking for myself, I wouldn't mind a tour of that.
Yeah, and it's an impressive center. I mean, it's brand new and, you know, they're processing.
Has anyone here already been there? Have you already been there?
Not since it's been new, there was talk about, I'm happy to join a tour or something.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you.
So they don't use two tin cans and string it. Just FYI.
Just a point of information, you probably saw in the budget, the anticipation was, I think that we would receive $40,000 less from the JPA monies that we would receive. It was cut down by some amount, like I think it's
$10,000.
$40,000. But and I mentioned this once before, the term cost recovery is going to be thrown around all over the place, and if you will, and my opinion is that the county finances all kinds of things that aren't cost recovered. That bus outside is one of them. They don't call recover all that. Cost recovery is an interesting marketing term, but and it's effective, you will. But and I'll get off this, but hopefully at some point in time, we can have some dollars and cents figures as to what it costs, who pays and so forth. It really nails it down. It's all this vague, you know, we want all the money to do it. I've never seen a dollar that says, you know, what is it the county dispatch center cost us? Who pays it? Where is it? There it is. And I won't get into that, but maybe at some point we will. Thank you, Chief. Anything else? Yeah.
Chief Cox, I have a quick question.
Yep.
Just, I don't know if your report was just anything to add, since we won't meet before Pumpkin Fest, like anything that's happening that's new this year, is it gonna go on as usual and?
That's a good
From your
question for
perspective.
Chief Silva and Chief Griffin as far as the planning process goes.
Yeah, I think Pat just did a walk with them, he did a walk with the Pumpkin
We've
Fest
been-
committee, right?
Yeah, we've been meeting monthly, to try and get ahead of some of it. Biggest thing that came out of the walk last week is we now have a dedicated fire lane that goes from Johnson down Kelly. As the triage area is now community. And every year seems to kind of vary on where the tent layout is, and to have a dedicated. Emergency vehicle access going forward annually, so we don't have to have the discussion every year is what we attempted to achieve, and I think we got there this year.
Fire marshal's report.
Good afternoon. For the month of August, 30 plan reviews, 22 inspections, some of the larger projects, just to keep you guys updated. Stone Pine Farm Labor Housing. 47 units there of modular homes, they are permanent structures. Carlos Street is 71 units, that'll be going close to 44. Big Wave, a portion of Big Wave was purchased by Midpen Housing. And they're still figuring out how many units they're gonna put in, but that is assumed to be low income as well on airport. The Hyatt Hotel behind us needs to have story poles up for 3 years, so they've had it for 2. So 1 more year of story poles there, and then they'll start breaking ground on that project. San Benito House, after the fire, they remodeled the upstairs. That'll be 10 units. We're just about finalized on the fire sprinkler system. There finally, so hopefully be putting that one to bed soon.
So those are, excuse me, those are gonna be residences and.
No, it'll be a motel. Yeah. It was long-term residences before, like long-term stays, but now it's just gonna be like overnight. 555 Kelly, the senior/retired farm labor housing is 40 units, and that's still moving forward.
Excuse me, is that still moving forward?
As far as we know, we have not heard otherwise.
But we have not approved it, we the fire district.
Only the planning case we have submitted to them, not approved the overall building plan. So the initial review, we provide our comments on what needs to be applied to the project. Then they either comment on our letter or they apply it all to the official building plans that are there rather to us.
Thank you.
Pumpkin Festival, as mentioned, is the 19th and 20th. Mandatory inspections for COSIDE should be completed by mid-November. And I believe that is about it. End of report.
Thank you, Chief. Chief, did you have any comments that you'd like to add?
No, we've been working on the ALS JPA stuff quite a bit. Trying to make sure we're getting meetings scheduled, copies of the old contracts, et cetera. So it's been a big topic.
Great, thank you.
Just for information, when we switch over to the 66-hour work, could we have, just for information, pictures of what the schedule will look like?
Yeah, we can.
We don't do it, I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, I can show you like what a month looks like.
Yeah.
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 Absolutely.
Might be fun.
Yeah, you got it.
Thank you.
Anything else? Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.